This is going to be one of my longer videos, just going to put that out there. So I'm not going to have a lot of time for chit chat beforehand. But if you're impatient with my longer videos, then I'm going to encourage you to stick with me through this one. I think that every point that I make will be of value to you. And one way that I personally get through long videos is I go down to the little settings bar and I actually fast forward the speed. So you could hear me talk twice as fast if you want, but I don't think you'll retain as much information that way, but it would definitely kind of speed things up if you're a little bit impatient. But today I want to talk about making change and the variables that are sort of working against us into making meaningful change in our life. And I'm going to give you 5 steps that you can take towards knowing what you need to do to start making things happen, so you can live the life that you've always wanted to live. So have you ever just thought about or realized how our emotions determine most of the behaviors that we exhibit in our day-to-day lives? How we're so driven towards maximizing comfort and pleasure and minimizing any type of pain or suffering. And we live in an era that sort of encourages us to operate like this. So you'll be watching commercials and you'll see, why diet and exercise when you can just take this pill and watch the weight slowly fade away? Why clean the shower when you can just buy this product and it'll clean the shower for you? Or why spend the time studying for a test when you can just put the answers on a label on a Coke bottle and stick it on your desk and cheat? And so we have all these things that are encouraging us to stay comfortable, and more often than not we're buying into it. And there are a couple of reasons why I think that we're doing this, which I'm going to go into, but I really want to drive the point home in this video that playing into these facets of our lives that are encouraging us to be safe and comfortable are actually preventing us from obtaining any sort of meaningful things that we want to get out of life. And so I'm just going to start by telling you that the first variable that is sort of working against us into making meaningful steps towards achieving change in our lives is actually ancestral. So this need to be comfortable and safe actually goes back to when humans first developed over 200,000 years ago. And I got this information from an article in the Harvard Business Review called How Hardwired is Human Behavior? And it basically discusses evolutionary psychology and how all the behaviors that we do today are reflected, are the same, I should say, than behaviors that we were doing over 200,000 years ago when we first developed. And there's a few reasons that they outline in the article as to why we haven't experienced any more evolution as a species as a whole. One reason is that when Homo sapiens first developed in the savannas of Africa, they were all in tribes together, and so they were faced with certain circumstances, then a mutation would occur in the brain to survive in that circumstance, and it would be spread upon the offspring in that tribe. But when we started traveling and humans started separating, then mutation couldn't be applied to everybody as a whole, and so that's kind of what we're going through now. So one of the quotes they have on there is that you can take a human out of the cave, but you can't take the caveman out of the human, and it's true. So if you're threatened by something, your amygdala is bound to alert you and make you fearful, and blood will start pumping through your veins and your adrenaline goes up, and this is what's sort of known as fight or flight mode. So you're either going to fight what's in front of you, or you're going to flee and run away. So we're hardwired to also exchange information with people and share secrets and gossip and all these things that we need to survive, such as eating, socializing, and maintaining a safe and comfortable environment, are all things that we're hardwired to do. And so this need to be comfortable is making it really hard on us to stay committed to any type of change or progress that makes us feel uncomfortable. You might be asking, like, well, Sarah, like, what's the problem? Like, if I'm hardwired to be comfortable, then why can't I just live a happy, comfortable, and safe life? And you can do that, but I would argue that change and progress is the opposite of comfort. If you've ever heard the phrase, nothing worth having comes easy, then, a way that you can think about this in your own life is think back to your greatest achievement. Did you achieve that thing from cheating or buying a product to make that achievement easier on you, to get the results that you want? Or did you put in the time, energy, focus, and dedication into making that achievement possible through the strength of your own will? And it's probably the latter for you. I really can't think back to a time when I accomplished something when I was really comfortable in my environment. And the same probably goes for you. So the more you learn how to defy these evolutionary boundaries that are deeply embedded into your brain, the more proud you're going to be of the results that you want to achieve. And you guys probably know by now that I'm a very visual learner, so to sort of paint you a picture of what change looks like to me, I made this little chart. So this is the levels of progress, or the levels of change. And so here is the blue is level 1. So level 1 is your comfort zone. And in terms of change, you're just remaining stagnant, so you're just staying in the same place. And so when you're operating in level 1, you're doing everything that to maintain that level of comfort. So let's say you're comfortable with eating junk food every day. You're comfortable with not exercising. You're not studying or doing your homework. And you're spending all your time on the computer watching TV, just doing things that involve a low level of focus or attention. Level 2 is the adjustment, or you're making some sort of progress in seeing the change that you want to see. So you're still eating unhealthy, but you're having a salad every day, so that counts, right? You're not exercising like you should be, but you're taking the stairs instead of the escalator at work. You're not studying still, but you're getting your homework done and you're being more present when you're doing your homework. And let's say that you're cutting down your TV time to a couple hours a day. And so when we get to level 3, I call this the discomfort stage. That's where you're gonna see real change. So you're only buying and eating healthy food. You're exercising 4 to 5 times a week consistently. You're studying a couple hours a day and doing all your homework. And let's say that you're only watching TV or on the computer as a way to reward yourself for doing all the things that you wanted to do that day. So that's what level 3 looks like. And I think that when we're making efforts to change, we start off obviously at level 1. But when we envision how we want things to be, or the end result of putting in the work towards achieving a result, then we envision ourselves at level 3. And so when you're trying to make something happen, it's going to be really difficult for you to just go from an uncomfortable zone to consistently staying in that discomfort zone. You can't just go from eating bacon in every meal to just being a vegan straight up without, learning some vegan recipes, without taking bacon out of your diet slowly. Like, it just doesn't work that way. So when you jump from levels and you ultimately fail because your evolutionary mind is just pushing you to go back into that comfort zone, then you ultimately become discouraged and you start to believe that you can't achieve the things that you want to achieve. And this actually leads me to my second point of why it's so difficult to change, is because the beliefs that you have about yourself will either make or break the progress that you want to see. So let's look at some examples. I have social anxiety, so I'm just gonna avoid going out as much as possible because that makes me really uncomfortable. Or I have social anxiety, but I think with enough exposure and different techniques that I can overcome the social anxiety and live the way I want to live. They're totally different beliefs, and one is going to make you see progress and one's going to break your attempts to see any type of progress. Let's see, I'm socially awkward, so I'm just gonna get used to being single for the rest of my life because nobody wants to be around somebody who's as awkward as me. Or you could say to yourself, you know what, like, I make people feel awkward sometimes, but I'm gonna make an effort to observe how other people interact and read some books and to figure out what I need to do to make people more comfortable around me because that's what I want out of life. Totally different again. And to give you an example that sort of relates to me personally, when I first moved back to Colorado, I was convinced that I couldn't drive in the snow. So when I was going to school, I would just have my boyfriend or my parents take me in the snow because I was just too scared and I believed I couldn't do it. And so one day they had all gone on a ski trip and I had to go to class in a blizzard. And so, I'm freaking out, and then I get in the car and I start driving and it's snowing and I'm sliding a little bit and I start having like a mini breakdown. Like, I was panicking, I was hyperventilating in the car, and ultimately I ended up turning into a neighborhood so I could make a U-turn and go home. Well, this neighborhood was not plowed like all the other streets were, so I ended up getting stuck. And so this made my belief that much stronger, like, oh my god, I'm stuck, I can't get out, I just can't do this. And I had to have 2 guys pull over and help me get unstuck, and I was just embarrassed and I was really disappointed in myself, but I believed that I could not drive in the snow. And I was using all these things that were happening to me as evidence to support that I couldn't drive in the snow. And it wasn't until these past 6 months or so when I moved out of my parents' house and I started working, I'm like, they can't take me to school or work anymore, so I'm gonna have to learn. I believe that I can learn how to be comfortable driving in the snow because that's what I need to do. It's so you can kind of see what's happening here is that the beliefs that you have about yourself are reinforcing the behavior that you do to support the beliefs that you have. There's a motivational speaker named Tony Robbins that I really like, and I find his messages to be very inspiring, and a lot of his messages are geared towards people in business, but I think that they can be applied to just life in general as well. And he says in one of his videos, which I'm gonna show you a clip of, is that the strongest force that lies in all of us is the need to act consistent with how we define ourselves. And this is extremely powerful. This is, how we're not going to just do things that defy how we define ourselves, because we want to act consistent with what we believe we can and can't do. So I'm gonna insert a clip of what he's talking about right here, so you can kind of get an idea of what he talks about, because I think he explains it better than I can. So let's look at this clip really fast.
One thing I've learned in the last, 33 years of working with people from now over 100 countries, 4 million people, is human beings absolutely follow through on who they believe they are. If you said to me, well, I'm really going to work hard to stop smoking, but I've been a smoker my whole life, and I am a smoker, I know your days are numbered. You're going to be back smoking cigarettes again, because we all act consistent with who we believe we are. I tell people the strongest force in the whole human personality is this need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. If you define yourself as somebody who is really conservative, you're not going to be crazy and act nuts unless you're really drunk or something, and then you can say it's the alcohol, when it's really just you finally getting permission to be yourself. The alcohol is your excuse. If you're a really crazy person, you act crazy, outrageous, playful. You don't act conservative, because that's not who you are. Very often people say, well, I can't do that. I'm not that kind of person. And I always say to people, really, when did you define yourself? I mean, really, how many years ago did you come up with what you could and couldn't do in your life? How many years ago? Most people, if they really look at how they're living their life today, it's based on a set of standards, a set of beliefs that they made choices about 10, 20, 30 or more years ago. I mean, very often we made decisions in our youth or very young about what to believe, about what we were capable of, about who we are as a person, and that becomes the glass ceiling, if you will, that controls us. There's a corny metaphor, but it's true. I remember one time I was with my family at the circus, and there was a person there, and they had this big giant elephant, and you look at this elephant, and they take this little rope, put it around the elephant's neck, and they drive this stake into the ground. And I mean, you look at this and you know that elephant could rip down the entire tent with almost no effort. And yet the elephant doesn't struggle, doesn't try. Why? Because the elephant's conditioned. And they take that elephant and condition the elephant when it's a baby elephant. That's how they train them. When it's a little baby elephant and it doesn't have the power yet, they put a big rope around it and they drive this huge stake in the ground, and the elephant fights and fights and fights. And one day, finally, that elephant decides, I'm not capable of pulling this out. And once that becomes the definition of an identity of anyone, an elephant in this case, they don't even try anymore. It's just who I am, that's how it is, that's just the way it is in my life.
So isn't that powerful? Like, when I saw that, it just made me really start to question my beliefs and how some things in my life could be different if I had just chosen to change those beliefs. But then it gives you hope kind of moving forward, like maybe if I do change this belief about myself or how I define myself, then maybe I'm really gonna start working towards the results that I want to see. We have these variables that are working against us. Our mind is hardwired to be drawn towards things that make us feel comfortable and safe, but we also have these beliefs about ourselves that either make or break the progress that we want to see in our lives. And so I'm going to give you 5 ways or 5 steps that you can take towards really recognizing the things that you want to overcome and how you can start making gradual steps towards achieving that change. So the first step is that you should understand your psychology, your genetic background, and your self-limiting beliefs. And you can just, write these down, just make a list. By genetic background, I mean that, if you've inherited depression from a parent and you're not being properly treated for it, it's going to be that much harder for you to find the energy to consistently work towards the goals you want to achieve unless you take the necessary steps you need to sort of overcome that depression and to really start making an effort to work towards change. So the second step is to single out your most limiting belief and write down why you have it and how it's preventing you from living the life that you want. And I highly recommend writing things down because nice to sort of see things on paper, and I think that you're more inclined to really follow through with things that you want to achieve if you write them down. The third step is going to be changing that belief about yourself a must. And what do I mean about a must? Well, I'm going to insert one more clip by Tony Robbins, and I'm going to let him explain what this means because I think that he explains it extremely well. So let's listen to this clip about making something a must.
I mean, I always tell people, if you want to know how to change your life, I give it to you in 3 words, boring as it sounds: raise your standards. And what does that mean? Corny as it sounds. Raise your standards. Oh, thank you for the breakthrough thought, Tony. I'm glad I wasted my time watching this little email with you. But think about it. Lasting change is different than a goal. You don't always get your goals, but you always get your standards. Maybe it would help you is to think about it this way. I try to explain standards to people with a different set of words. Think of it as everybody in life gets their musts. They don't get their shoulds. Like, think about it. Most people have a list of shoulds, don't they? Don't you have a list of the shoulds, things you should do, you should follow through on? I should lose some weight, I should work out more, I should make more calls, I should respond more rapidly to my email, whatever, you know? I should get into the office earlier, I should be, more confident. Whatever your should list is, people love to have their should list be met, but it's kind of like New Year's resolutions. If it does, it's really exciting, but if it doesn't, which is most of the time, it's a little disappointing, but you kind of know it's not going to happen. But when you decide something is a must for you, an absolute must, when you cut off any possible, you say, I'm going to find the way or I'm going to make the way. Human beings, when they resolve things, when they make a real resolution inside themselves, which is they raise the standard and they make it a must, they find the way. Think about it in your own life. Haven't you had some area of your life where you raise your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it and kept telling yourself I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point. And inside yourself you said no more. And it was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside of you shifted, and what was a should became a must, and you've never gone back.
So the fourth step would be to develop realistic goals towards moving towards that goal until that level of discomfort becomes a habit. Because again, you can't just jump from something uncomfortable to being a pro at whatever you want to see happen. You got to make the realistic steps and adjustments in level 2 in order to really see some progress towards level 3. And once you're here with making something a habit, then it's not going to feel so discomfortable anymore. It's going to be something that you're doing consistently, and the level of discomfort is going to fade as time goes on. And my last recommendation would be to track your progress. This one is huge. So for me, with meditating, I just started writing little tally marks every day that I meditated, and gradually watching those tally marks grow, it's really inspiring and it makes me really proud of myself. And I'm to a point where I've meditated over 30 days in a row now, and so when I'm tempted to skip a session, I just think back to those tally marks, like, you know what, I don't want to have to redo all of these marks, so instead I'm just going to take out 10 minutes of my day and meditate, so I can add another mark to my chart, instead of having to feel disappointed in myself for sacrificing all that progress just so I could be comfortable. And so those are my 5 steps towards achieving change. I'll put the steps and all the links that I've inserted in this video in the description down below. And to sort of close out this video, I'm going to end with one of my favorite Dr. Phil quotes, which is, it's easier to accept the way things are than to accept responsibility to change it. And like I said, you have all these variables that are working against you, but if you make an effort to consistently work against them, it'll be worth it in the end. And just don't allow yourself to be a victim to your circumstances. and instead become a victor for overcoming them, and you'll be really proud of yourself later on. And so that's all I got. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you very soon.